Yo, what's going on? So, I wanted to share a recent breakthrough that one of my clients had. And it was literally just the nervousness of calling leads and booking appointments. That's number one. And number two was a little bit of lacking perspective from experience. Uh, and so, a couple things. One, imagine you're getting leads, but you're so busy that you're fulfilling clients and you don't have time to bring on new clients. But you're kind of at this point where you're stuck and you need more revenue, but you don't really have the time to call and get new business in, which is a conundrum, right? Because you're at a point where your business needs to pivot and you need to make more money. So, what do? You can avoid it or you can lean in. Shout out to my client who leaned in and was able to, let's say, book his first appointment from when we first started working together recently. And initially he was like, oh, I'm nervous. I don't like calling. I'm not good at this. And that's fair because he was admitting it. But at the same time, he recently was able to book his first appointment. So I have a booking call script. It's like its third iteration and it is absolutely fire. And the biggest benefit is being able to follow steps, follow the script. We practiced it, we role played, and he booked his own appointment. I asked him what happened. He's like, I followed the script. I asked her a few questions, blah, 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 blah. I didn't go too deep. And I'm like, perfect. The goal isn't necessarily to get too deep, but I was like, how does it feel? He's like, oh, it feels great. I'm like, cool. Now we just need more of that. But initially, he was like avoiding it. He was leaning out, and I was monitoring some of the numbers. I'm like, hey, you're getting leads and they're coming in, but no one's contacting them, which inevitably means you are wasting money because there's so much potential there. Well, he did it, and like, I'm super proud of him. Second thing, though, is lacking perspective. Imagine what it requires in order to get a booked appointment and like be able to close a deal versus like you don't understand and you're only putting up minimal effort. So for example, let's say someone's like, "Oh yeah, I want to get in really good shape. I want to put on muscle. I want to do this that." Cool. But I only want to work out once a week. And you're like, your goal and what you're willing to put in do not match. And so you got to ask yourself, what do you want more? Do you only want to put in a little bit of work and expect to get the outcome? Or do you want to put in enough work to get the outcome? And so lack of perspective is a big thing I notice is because a lot of times we don't understand what it really requires of us in order to see the results that we want. And a lot of times it's simply more volume. Do more. So for example, if you're like, no one's picking up, I'm like, well, you made 3 calls. You need to put in at least, let's say, double that to start off. And then even if you doubled and you're like, still no one's picking up. Here's kind of some of our metrics. 45 calls a day. Someone made 3, and he's like, no one's picking up. I was like, we made 45 calls a day. We had 6 people pick up. Out of those 6 pickups, we had 3 booked appointments. So 3 booked appointments out of 45 calls, and you made 3. Okay, so just consider the biggest difference of that. Number 2 is a lot of times we lack perspective because we don't put in enough work. We don't have the right inputs to get the right outputs. Because there's just nuanced things you tend to pick up when you do things more. For example, if someone exercised once a week and they're trying to get their numbers up, put on muscle, lose weight, etc., but they're only really putting in work once a week, and 6 months goes by and you're like, nothing's changed, I'm not seeing results, nothing's working, and I'm like, well, what are you actually doing? Because the reality is along the same course of time, there's people who see results, there's people who are making progress, there's people who are making money, there's people who are closing deals, there's people every day losing weight, people who are etc., right? So it's like, what are you doing versus what are they doing? And it's more likely it's just a numbers game. It's just a volume game. They're putting in the work more often, more frequent, and a lot of times those who lack experience just don't understand like what's required versus what your best is. And I love this quote from Alex Hormozy because it really gives you a perspective of the difference of what people put in because what they think is the best, which is their best, which is like, let's say 3 calls a day. You're like, this is all I can do. And I'm like, bro, we're making 45 calls a day getting 6 to 8 people to pick up, which is like 15 to 20%. Then we're booking half of those people into an appointment, right? So imagine 5% of people that you call will book an appointment, but you need to put in 50 calls a day, right? The other side of that is what's required. You might not see if your best is only like 10% of what's required. So you got to imagine there's still that 90% gap from what you're putting in to what's required. So for example, what's required is like in fitness and trying to transform is like eating well, eating enough, being consistent, getting enough rest, training at least 3 to 4 times a week, having a program that's variable and changes over time. Wow, you're like, yeah. And you do this enough time, you kind of understand the basics because you've done so much crap wrong. Similar in business, you probably do so many things wrong that eventually you'll learn the right way. This is why mentors, this is why personal trainers, coaches, fitness owners, business owners who have been there can see what other people are doing, because it's like, I made the same mistakes. I'm trying to not allow you to make the same mistakes so that you get the results faster. You do exactly what's required and you'll see results sooner, versus you continually make mistakes and you learn what not to do, and the distance from where you are to where you want to go, that gap increases because you continually do the wrong things. Whereas other people who've understood the nuances, got it correct, are now doing the right things, will see results faster because they do more of the right things, versus others who do more of the wrong things. So the biggest lesson I took away was, as we share these moments of epiphanies, like, look how many dials you need to make, look how many calls you need to make, look how many people you book, you understand that just more volume of the right inputs will bring the outcome that you want closer to you and sooner, versus if you lollygag and you procrastinate and you avoid and you're like, what are you doing, right? Because the reality is, I've done the same thing. I was like, oh, I'd rather train more clients than like close more deals. And it's like, well, which one is going to make you more money? Training more clients or closing more deals? You're like, well, closing more deals. Training more clients doesn't make you more money. That's kind of the reality. Other than that, I know I'm going on a little rant here, but hopefully you understood kind of the message of my chat today. Other than that, if you like this kind of content, follow for more. Talk to you soon. Peace.